So conformity, obedience, and compliance are all big parts of social psychology. So let's talk about what they are and some of the biggest, most important research that's been done on these ideas. All right, so first is conformity. And really what this is changing or adapting your behavior or an attitude in an effort to be more consistent with social norms or of the expectations of the group of people, okay? So Aish is the one who really did a lot of research on conformity, or really the groundbreaking research on conformity. And what he did is he put participants and he placed them at a table with 10 other people. Okay, the only person at the table who was actually a participant was the person who was naive, okay? And everybody else at the table was part of the research team. Again, this is unbeknownst to the real participant, okay? And then they asked them a really simple question, okay, such as which line is longer, A or B? And the answer is very, very obvious. And what the experiment was is all of the Confederates at the table gave the wrong answer. And it was to see what the naive participant would do. Would the naive participant also give the wrong answer because everybody else did? And the results are pretty astounding, okay? 5% of people conformed all the time, okay? 70% of people conformed at least some of the time, and 25% of people never conformed, okay? So again, these are very obvious answers, which question is right and wrong, and how willing are people to conform to this group of people. They've done all kinds of variations on this where you have 15 Confederates, you know, maybe more people saying the wrong answer makes you more likely to say the wrong answer, but that's not true. Even 3 Confederates at the table was enough to produce wrong answers in conformity. Conformity was reduced when there was even one other dissenting opinion. Women were no more likely to conform than men, which shattered, at the time, shattered people's thoughts about how women think. All right, and this is, I always want to point out that this is really important. If you are kind of sitting in a group and everybody's talking about something and it seems wrong, kind of obvious to you, but nobody else is saying anything, so you feel like maybe you shouldn't say anything either, I encourage you to speak up. We talk to younger kids about this, about bullying. You know, if you are the one person who stands up and says, hey, don't pick on that kid, other kids are more likely to also step in and say the same thing. You know, let's not do that. Okay, so it's powerful information, not just for little kids, but this is powerful in our adult lives as well. What power we have in groups. All right, obedience. All right, and this is really important research. The definition is behaving in accordance with the rules and commands of those in authority. All right, and Milgram's research on this is actually really controversial, okay? But we'll talk about it here in a moment. So Milgram's experiment was he took 40 males, okay, everybody within the ages between 20 and 50 years old, and this person was to be the quote-unquote teacher, all right? And again, this is the only naive participant in the whole experiment, all right? And then you have the learner and the experimenter. These people are the accomplices. They're on the research team, okay? So the teacher read word pairs to the learner and asked them to recite it, okay? If the learner gave the right answer, you move on. If they gave the wrong answer, then the teacher was supposed to shock the learner. Okay, the shock panel was set up. It was 30 different levers and switches in progressing sets of voltage. And if they hesitated, the experimenter would urge them on. Okay, so if the teacher was like, I don't know if I should shock them anymore, the experimenter would say, you know, please continue, please keep going, please continue. And not one participant, okay, stopped. No one stopped before 20 switches. Okay, the 300 volts, which is enough to kill a human being. Okay, even when the learner was pounding on the walls and begging him to stop the experiment, stop, which is again all part of the script. The people were still obedient to the experimenter. All right, and again, this took a really terrible toll on the participants. Milgram reported that they sweat, they tremble, they stutter, bite their lips, they groan, dig their fingernails into their flesh, etc., etc. So it's not that they were doing this because they enjoyed the sadistic nature of it, but they were doing it because they believed that it was important to be obedient. Now, there is actually a really great video about obedience in your chapter folder. Please take a look at that. All right, variations. They tried with more teachers, two of whom were accomplices. When one of the other accomplices refused to follow orders, the participant was also likely to refuse as well, which again repeats what we showed in Aisha's study, is that one dissenting opinion can encourage others to also dissent. Compliance. This is acting in accordance with the direct requests of other people. All right. So how do you persuade people? All right. So one is the foot in the door technique, all right? And this is where you gain a favorable response to a small request with the intent of making the person more likely to agree to a larger request later, all right? So, for example, you're doing your laundry and your roommate says, hey, you're doing laundry, can I throw some jeans in with yours? And you're like, oh, okay, sure. And then later she'll say, hey, would you throw a load in of mine for me? And then before you know it, you're doing your roommate's laundry because you got the foot in the door there. All right, and compliance. Another aspect of persuading people would be the door in the face. This is where you make an unreasonably large request knowing that it will be declined, and then you follow it with a smaller request knowing that the person is more likely to agree. All right, so for example, if I said, hey, can I borrow 50 bucks? And you would look at me and go, no. I'd say, hey, you want to buy me a soda? Okay, can I borrow $1 to buy a soda? You would be more inclined than if I said, hey, would you loan me $1 so I can have a soda? See the difference there? Compliance. Another technique would be the low ball technique. All right. This is where somebody would make a very attractive initial offer to get you to commit to something and then make the terms less favorable. So, hey, how would you like an all-inclusive free stay in the Bahamas? And once you're there, all you have to do is go to 3 one-hour sessions to learn about buying a timeshare in the Bahamas.